Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to Prop People live stream. One more week. We are going to start very, very soon. To this afternoon, we have Martin with us, and he's going to be talking about probabilistic thinking for product managers. So stay tuned for it. To ask questions, and we're going to have a little icebreaker poll. Feel free to scan the QR code that you see on the screen, or go to slido.com and insert also the code on the screen. So there you'll be able to answer polls and ask questions directly to Martin. So we are already started. Let me do a little presentation about us and about me. As I said, today we're having Martin Stahl, former CPO and product consultant, and he's going to be walking us through what's probabilistic thinking for product managers. And I'm going to be today's host. I'm Andrea. I'm the Junior Growth Marketing Manager at Product People. I've been around 2 years and 4 or 5 months at Product People, and I have experience in growth marketing. I worked in business development previously, and I also work both in B2B and B2C in digital marketing, lead generation, content creation, and growth marketing strategies. Originally in my bachelor in food science and technology. And as I said, I'm going to be today's host. So, we're Sprout People. What do we do? Maybe you already know us if you've already joined some of our live streams. If we're not, here 50 cents about us. We basically do interim product management, products operation, um, and transformation acceleration via our in-house stuff. And that's basically how we make money, how we pay our bills, and all our main scope. But one of the pillars of our people is to give back and to share knowledge with the community. And these weekly live streams is one of the ways that we give back. We have one of the Europe's largest PM communities with around 60,000 members. And besides the live stream events that we do weekly, we also have in-person events. And we have a podcast and newsletter. And basically, if you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll see that we post daily content about product management, our challenges, case studies, and basically to share this hive mind that product people is. So, for starters, to break the ice, we want to get to know you, and we would like you to answer a little poll question. To answer it, you can scan the QR code that you see here on the screen, or go to slido.com and insert the code 3743618. And that little question that is going to help us and help Martin see how's the audience doing today is which statement best reflects your current approach to decision making in product management. So we have five answers. Number one, gut feeling is my compass. I trust my instincts, especially when data is scarce. B, that data is king. I aim to gather as much information as possible before making any decisions. C, I weigh various scenarios and potential outcomes to make informed bets, acknowledging uncertainty. D, I follow established processes and best practices to minimize risk and ensure consistency. And E, I actively question my own assumptions and seek diverse perspectives to avoid blind spots. So this is today's poll. Um, if you haven't yet scanned the QR code, let us know your thoughts. Definitely very interesting to see how the audience is thinking. I have my own bets, but we'll see what's the answer. Also for you, Martin, to see how our audience today is leveraging data and how that ties back to your talk. We'll wait a few more seconds to gather all the answers. And okay, we have the results. So 45% people said answer C, which is I weigh various scenarios and potential outcomes to make informed bets, acknowledging uncertainty. That's the winning horse. Then we have E with a 36% of people and B with an 18% of people. So nobody voted for A or D. Those are our results, Barry. And as I said, today is all about Martin. It's about probabilistic thinking for product managers. So I'm going to let the stage for you. So you may start sharing your
Okay,
screen, Martin.
perfect. Okay, hey, how are you doing? Thanks for having me, product people, again. So my last talk was a year ago. It was quite nice and had a nice discussion. Hope we have another nice discussion later today. But give me a second to share my screen real quick. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can. Perfectly.
Can make it. Okay, perfect. So again, hello, my name is Martin. Thanks for joining and talking about the probabilistic thinking in product management. But before I start, let me say a word about myself. So why should you listen what I have to say? I'm in product management over 15 years, in digital business even more. I've been mostly in scale-ups here in Berlin. Just coming in Series B, leave at Series C, something like this in this area. My last role was a CPO role in an innovation hub by a corporate environment. So also been there, seen that. At the moment, I'm consulting tech teams and product organizations, basically about everything: company building, organization building, team building, conflicts, decision making, like these kind of topics. And beside that, also mentoring, coaching product managers and tech people. I have a background in systemic consulting and philosophy and political science. So I tend to be a little more theoretical than others. I'm sorry for that. I hope it's not too bad. But anyway, let's dive into the topic. And what are we going to talk today about? Basically, in product management and all digital business, I would say, no matter tech, marketing, sales, whatever, we make hundreds of decisions every day, right? In a very, very fast manner and a quick manner. And in most of the times, we have limited data for solution, effort, customer, market behavior. We don't know. We just can guess. And on the same time, we have a complex stakeholder environment which influences the decisions, or at least they want to influence the decisions, right? So in that environment, fast-paced, and usually we don't have much time to reflect. Often it's firefighting or being very defensive and not, really like strategic. That all happens, all good. We all know these packed backlogs, and there are even more great ideas out there which we want to implement and are expected to deliver. So I guess that sounds familiar to some of you. That's why I want to come back to a very basic discipline, which is decision making. So we basically talk about decision making. And I know there are millions, gazillions of frameworks, there are prioritization frameworks, and you can have all this discussion on LinkedIn. Should we use RISE or should we use Moscow, whatever? So that's all good. It's all important. It's good that we have all these frameworks, but I want to zoom out just a little and try to understand the underlying principles and which framework to choose in which environment. Because usually in all these articles, they usually fail to mention that what worked in like a global e-commerce not necessarily works for your startup with 50 people somewhere in Kreuzberg, right? So it's always good to zoom out, understand the principles, and which helps us to to pick the right frameworks. So when we talk about decision making, I will come to an understanding during the talk where we understand decision making as a bet like bet like in gaming, where you put money on something, with an array of uncertain outcomes rather than a fixed result. And here comes the thing. Often, or most of the time, we are expected to have this one answer, right? There's this problem, and here's the solution. And if we are smart, but only if we are smart, we pick the right solution, right? So there's usually like this deterministic connection, one-to-one connection between problem and solution, which of course we all know doesn't exist in the real world. But before we dive into this, why am I holding this talk? Why is this the topic for today? I'm inspired by a book I recently read, which is this one, Thinking in Bets. This is how it looks, by Annie Duke. And Thinking in Bets is a book about decision making, written by a professional, former professional poker player. So Annie Duke was a former professional poker player. And you might question, okay, what do we have to do with poker player? I'm not a poker player. I have no idea how this game works, a little maybe. But why poker? Why should we look at poker to learn something about product management or about decision making? So in poker, what she says, the poker players have to make multiple decisions with significant financial consequences in a compressed time frame. So please read it again and then tell me, does this sound familiar? To be honest, I believe it's a great description of what product managers are doing, right? So probably not that much financial consequence for us personally, but at least for the company. So there's that. Talking about games, when you pick up the strategy books at your trade stations, bookstore, they'll usually use chess, the game of chess, as an analogy, right? But chess, the thing about chess is you have a very stable system. Like you have this stable amount of figures. You have a stable amount of rules. You have 100% transparency over everything because it's open, right? You can see it. So chess is probably a bad example for that kind of thinking because it's more like computation. And if you lose a game, you probably didn't because you didn't do your computation right. In poker, there's so many incomplete information, zero or low transparency over the cards the other person holds. So I can make estimations, what was played already, which card, what could he or she have, like these kind of things. So it's a great example to learn about making decisions in uncertainty-driven environments, right? I guess many of you know already a lot about behavioral economy, about game theory, like I call these things. There's so many books out there and they're all worth reading, I guess. Nevertheless, let's zoom out again and look at this and have a nice discussion afterwards. So deterministic. I used this word earlier when it comes to this decisions we're expected to make, which are the only right decision. And we often assume or treat decisions like there's this absolute clarity, all data is available, the system is totally stable, we know the market behavior, we know the customer behavior, we know the feasibility of the tech, and we can decide it rationally. So with smartness and rationality, we can pick the right decision. Unfortunately, it's not like that, as mentioned. And usually we have an array of options. And of course, in the past times when we were thousands and thousands of years ago, when we were roaming the bushes and we heard some crackling noise in the bush, We had to make fast decisions, risking false positives. Okay, it was not a bear, it was just a bird or whatever. And we still kind of tick this way as humans, and we always have to make this aware that we still work this way. And if you read Kahneman, system one, system two way of thinking, like these kind of things, they still influence us. So in another example, let's say you go for a hike and you check the weather report, and it says, okay, sun with 4% of rain. So it would be very rational to just leave your rain gear at home and just go for it. And very likely you won't need it. But of course, like the 4% rain can kick in. Bad luck, and probably you made the wrong decision. So you see, making wrong or a good decision is not necessarily related to having a good outcome or a bad outcome. You can make a good decision but have a bad outcome, and vice versa, right? So these things have also be remembered. So again, if you are asked as a product manager, hey, Martin, you have 200 years of experience in product management. So our churn rate just went up the roof. With your experience, what should we do? What would you do? I don't know. Maybe there's this one answer, but the only right answer is, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have enough data. I have to have more understanding of the whole problem before I can put my bet on it. So, well, that something jumped here. Okay, probabilistic thinking. So what does that mean? Just to remind ourselves, in probabilistic thinking, we take uncertainties into account, right? And make decisions based on these probabilities. So meaning, in the example of the hike, I would probably go on the day with the lowest rain forecast. Like I would do the hike tomorrow when it's like 1% rain forecast, and not today when they say like 20% rain forecast, probability of rain. So that's the kind of thinking. And again, like this certainty, this absolute certainty, like 100% of data, transparency of all data, we never have it. Even if we think we have it, the chance is high, the chance is low that we all have it. So this is an illusion. Nevertheless, probabilistic thinking is not new to us, I guess. It's baked in user testing. We work with that, A/B testing. In Kanban, you have this distribution charts of lead time. You maybe do Monte Carlo simulations. In product check management, when you plan out, you have this 2 sigma, 4 sigma, 8 sigma kind of funnels. And in Scrum prides itself that it has a scientific approach, a scientific method to deal with uncertainty. So it's there, so it's around us. It's nothing new. But again, let's zoom out and have a little chat. So it's about this making decisions, making good decisions. And what is a good decision? First, it's a solid decision-making process. And decision-making process means there is some way where we approach these options we have on the table. Not the solid decision-making process would be I decide very fast without thinking because I have 5 people around me who expect me to say something, right? So the solid decision-making process, which is kind of clear, transparent at least for yourself, which can also be improved if it's not working properly, or if I have the impression that it's not working properly. Plus, it's always the current representation of the current state of knowledge. So what do we know about the problem? What are our assumptions? What are our hypotheses? How good is the data we have? Is it reliable, or do we need more data? So this is part of a good decision, to have this data available. And having an exit rule. And we come to the exit rule later. This is quite interesting. It's another book by Annie Duke. This one, I have this all in the resources. So if you download the slides, that's all linked. Okay. So with good decision making, we want to move towards objectivity, accuracy, and open-mindedness. And of course, if you do like gut feeling decisions, sometimes gut feeling decisions are not bad per se. Sometimes it's better to decide than to not decide and stay in this kind of paralysis because I have to ask so many people and it's so complicated, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, if you want to make good decisions, we have all this in place. So to make this easier and move away from this big word decision making, let's talk about bets. So we place bets on options we have, which implies we know the options we have. So there are alternatives, there are scenarios for our problem. We look for different risks. And of course, we look for the benefit, for the outcome we want to achieve. What's not part of bets or what shouldn't be part of bets are simple answers. Like I said before, sometimes it makes sense to be simple, to be fast, to be easy, use some heuristics. But this should be the exceptions, of course. So when placing bets in product management or in poker or in life, the hard part is in poker, we bet against the other poker player. So we can be very cold. You know, you're all these gangster movies where they sit in some room and play poker and they're super cold, have this poker face and just wait for somebody to blink with the eye. In product, when we make bets on our behalf or the team or the organization, we bet against our own future, right? Which make it very difficult emotionally first, because we are not that stone cold anymore, right? And of course, we have bad bet influences, right? And these are the biases. It is just a small list of biases, and I'm sure you heard of them, you know them. And I can always ask or suggest to come back to biases, repeat, relearn, and understand how you personally tick and how you react when one of these biases comes into action on your table, right? So I skip that, but I personally have a strong belief that the biases are really the end boss game for product managers. It's like our biggest opponent, fight the biases in decision making. And like all my former team members of my product teams, they probably roll their eyes now because they hear this like 3 times a week. But I really believe it's important to understand this personal mechanics which influence yourselves. So that's for the theory. How can we apply this in daily work? We work with scenarios, so that's the start. So of course, we have like this whole problem space, exploration, discovery. This is a big part of the product management work. There are whole books about product discovery. So problem space, very important, but this is before we kick in here with our decision making, right? So working with the scenarios, I have a problem and I have to brainstorm what kind of scenarios could be an outcome, right? And part of these scenarios, of course, must be the probability, the risk, the assumption, the beliefs, the choice, the effort, whatever, you name it, what makes sense for your environment. How do you create these scenarios? There are 2 ways. One way is working backwards. One way is definitely you start here today and just brainstorm what could happen. Science have it that it's not very promising in the outcome. It's better to work backwards. So you start with a positive best outcome, best future, and work backwards and ask yourself, okay, what could be ways and scenarios to work towards that perfect goal? And if working backwards sounds familiar, you probably know this one. This is a book about Amazon, how they work in Amazon. They have this kind of thinking baked in all kind of steps of product development. The other suggestion, and I believe this comes from Annie Duke, the poker player, but I'm not sure if she's the originator of that, is the pre-mortem. Like the post-mortem, when shit happens, you can do a pre-mortem. You think of a negative, a bad outcome, a worst solution, and then identify scenarios. How could we come here? For example, you want to build this big feature, which takes you 4 months of development, and the customer is just not using it. So how could we get there? Scenario one, we do absolutely no customer research, right? So I guess you know what I mean. So you identify ways to a negative outcome, and then you know, okay, this is probably not the best way we should go. How do you create the scenarios? Okay, we heard, okay, create a list of scenarios. Then step 2, estimate the probability of each scenario. Look at the data you already have. Maybe understand how good the data is. So probably for that new feature, I have some solid customer research, but I feel only it's like 60% of the data we should have. Maybe we should have 80 or 90% to make this decision, like this kind of reasoning and thinking. The next step, prioritize the scenarios, right? So you have a list with the estimate of the probabilities, and probably you bake more factors in, like outcome, like risk, and there are nice formulas you can build indices, or like the probability and outcome, expected value, and then you can kind of sort the list by probability, or like I would say, yeah, sort the list by how good the solution are, probably. And a last point is, of course, if you have new data and probably you collect data on the go all the time, you update your estimates frequently with the new information coming in. This seems obvious, but I've seen many organizations where they create this documents where everything is kind of set in stone, and then there's not much you can do. If you come up with a new estimate, okay, this won't take 3 months as estimated, it will take 5 months. It's really hard to, you know, to communicate that so people stick to the original estimates. We shouldn't do that, right? So if we feel that we are not confident to make the decision yet, or the data is not sufficient to make the decision, it's always fair to run experiments. Experiments is a nice way with a limited time frame, with limited resources, to improve our set of data, right? And help us with the decision making. So there's this test card from Strategizer. There's also a learning card from Strategizer. It's also in the resources. You can download it. And I really like this. I mean, it's nothing too crazy. There's like a hypothesis. How do we test? What is the metric we're looking for? And how do we define success, right? And what I like, for example, at this test card is that you have data reliability. How good is the data we have? What would it cost to add more data to it? Do we have user testing in place, or is it really complicated to find users to make qualified interviews? So that's that. I would add assumptions before hypothesis, but that's probably a matter of taste. I believe it's valuable to have a discussion about the assumptions we have in the room, in the team, in management group, whatever, before we come to the hypothesis, because there's so many assumptions flying around, and they're usually not the same. And the last thing is the exit criteria. It's not here on the test card, but we come to that. So the exit criteria is quite interesting, because one of the most common biases is the sunk cost fallacy. I'm sure you heard of it. So, hey, Martin, why should we remove the feature? Like the team worked on it for 3 months and you want to remove it. Okay, nobody's using it, fair, but that's totally demotivating for the team because invested so much time and effort already in this feature. Probably heard that already. So the idea here is once you're in the solution, once you're invested in building the solution, you're very likely not deciding rationally anymore. So that's the idea behind. That's why it makes a lot of sense to define an exit criteria before you walk into the solution. What does it mean? There's this very famous exit rule. That's the Mount Everest 2 p.m. rule. And there are many articles, there are documentations on Netflix, on telly, everywhere about this 2 p.m. rule. And it's quite interesting because it says if you summit Mount Everest, like the last bit of from Camp 4 to the summit, you must be at the summit by 2 p.m. and then descend. Because if you don't do it, the chance that you will not make it back is very high. And definitely there are climbers who said, oh, it's only 20 minutes. I have 20 minutes. It's only 500 meters. I can do it, no problem. Then they're 4 p.m. at the peak and they don't make it back. Of course, there are examples like the Spanish runner, Kilian Jornet. He's a crazy dude. He also has a documentation about his Mount Everest climb. So I believe that's a great example of exit rules because especially on the Mount Everest example, you see once people are in and they see the summit just right in front of them, they don't make rational decisions anymore. So it's good to have them in place. And moving on, what are daily applications of probabilistic thinking? Data-driven decision-making, we heard it in the earlier in the survey. You already do it. This is great. In A/B testing, user interviews, data analytics, etc. But always keep in mind, there's not this one solution. It's always an array of solutions. And even if you make a good decisions with the data you have, you might have a bad outcome, right? Scenario planning, simulations with decision trees, causal loop diagrams. There's so many tooling around that. Probably know a few of them. Risk mitigation frameworks. It's more classic project management tooling, but I believe it makes a lot of sense also in tech. Even if we can move very fast and if we make errors, we can just deploy the next version and it's good. But still, for bigger strategic questions, for bigger initiatives, the features, whatever, always makes sense to have some knowledge in risk mitigation. And now this is my last slide. Also work with the probabilities when you talk to your stakeholders. I mentioned the 2 sigma, 4 sigma, 8 sigma, or I think it's the way around, sigma 2, sigma 4, sigma 8, which means depending on the uncertainty I see in a project, I open the funnel of uncertainty a little more. So it's probably the estimation is 3 months, but since there's a high uncertainty, I say, okay, 8 sigma, so there will be a deviation, a possible deviation of 1 month, for example. And again, a startup person or as product person, people we are, fail fast, do your experiments, fail smart, learn, do retrospective, understand what went wrong. Maybe nothing went wrong, it was just bad luck, or the market moved, or the customer did something you couldn't see, like this kind of retrospective postmortems do it. Also have learning loops. There are also many examples in Agile, how you do this kind of iterative loops, which helps you to get better incrementally. So that was a quick flyover in probabilistic thinking. And again, all books I showed up quickly. Some articles are linked into resources. It looks like this. They're in the slides I upload on this link. So It's not up yet. It will be up later. So if you're interested, just click somewhere. And that's the end of my part. And I'm looking forward to the discussion now. Giving back to you.
Thank you so much, Martin. It was a very interesting presentation. I think it's very interesting because it does not only apply to product management, like you can apply these lessons or these principles to many other areas. For example, for me, concretely, like I work in marketing, um, there's a few takes that you can always think about and take whatever you're working at. Let me reshare my screen. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So now we're going to open the Q&A. Please share your questions with us. Martin is going to be answering live. Here's a QR code that you can scan. It goes to the same place that the poll questions that you previously answered to goes. Or if you don't want to scan the QR, just feel free to go to slido.com and add the code. And in the meantime, while we collect the questions and let the people formulate them, we're going to talk a bit about product people and what we do. As I mentioned before, we do interim product management. And many times people ask us like, what is that exactly? And which use cases or when are we going to engage into a client? So the main use case is for interim and fractional product management. That can be, permanent position covers. Like for example, if you're hiring for product management roles, the hiring process can be quite a long time. So to bridge the gap, we offer like we go into this permanent position covers, obviously for parental leave covers, and important and initial or urgent initiatives. Like, for example, if you want to do product discovery or product delivery, or you really need to build an MVP, that's one of the use cases and when we can engage. Also, for product management and product operations, like to upskill your product management team or to create and streamline processes and programs. This is also another use case where we've been engaged with, and also for transformation acceleration, which means that if you want to shift from sales led product to tech led or product led, we have experience on that. Or if you want to configure your product strategy and team structure, that's another use case of us. Here you can see some of our B2C clients. We've worked with Zalando, with DeepL, Ecosia, Back Market, Omeo, Douglas, and our B2B clients like Pliant, Remote, Ometria, Eternal Health, and the World Health Organization. So a bit about us, like our stats. We've supported 300 cross-functional teams and more than 70 clients from Series E startups to publicly listed companies. We are a total of 42 product leaders and product managers, and we are product people in-house and full-time, which ensures the quality of our service and also the career development of our onigiris. And 62% of the women in the of women are in the team and 66% in leadership. And we have a very strong bias to promote from within and attract more women in the tech industry. Again, this is for the questions. We're going to leave this slide here while we answer them, just in case people want to ask more questions. We already have a few. So, Martin, I hope you're ready. The first question is, how can we manage expectations to make perfect decisions every time, especially when combined with hindsight when we make bets?
Hmm. Um, I think a good starting point is always a decision-making process, like having a defined decision-making process. And it could be like, okay, so this is the problem space. This is what we know. These are assumptions. Assumption could be we believe that people who want to book a doctor's appointment via the phone. Um, they they probably do it very early in the morning before they go to work, because that's most of the cases. So that would be an assumption. The hypothesis is, if we make it more accessible for mobile phones, probably usable with one thumb or something like that, something that's just made up, we probably have better usage. So have like these assumptions in place, hypothesis in place, do your scenarios, and have this process for all decisions, or at least for the bigger decisions, and have this transparent. So usually, this is my experience, and it's only my experience. Usually, many stakeholders are not aware that there's a science behind what we do, right? It's not just like ad hoc, we do just crazy stuff all the time. But basically, make this visible. This is how I make my decision. This is how I sort my backlog. This is the criteria, and this is how I compute this, and this is the data I look into. And so, especially if you talk with stakeholders, make this transparent, and also be open why their feature is not that highly ranked than other features, for example. And then they see, okay, there's some lack of data because we haven't done enough research in our cohort we want to address with marketing. I go back and do my homework, and probably later we have better data. So this is my best tip. Never make these kind of discussions personal. Let it come to conflicts. Conflict, yes, but healthy, professional conflicts, I would say, conflicts in the topic. And this is when data comes in, when a clear process come in. And this don't have to be like a super crazy document, just like, okay, look, these are the 3 steps I usually do. And before I decide or prioritize a feature, this is what I do. Dear person from marketing, come sit down with me and we fill this out together. So it's transparent and you don't have these conflicts rising up. Does this answer the question?
Yeah, I think that was a great answer.
Yeah.
We have another question, which is how can small teams use probabilistic thinking with limited data?
I I would assume that small teams means that there's not enough time and resources to do all the research and to go to all the process, um, which is fair enough. That's our reality, right? Of our work. Nevertheless, do it small. Do it as small as needed, as small as possible. Just follow your steps. This is the problem. Make a problem statement. This is the assumptions. This is like I said. Make it small. And if you understand, okay, there's a huge user research needed, and we don't have the time and the budget. Okay, bad luck. So still, you're aware of that. Okay, we make a decision now under low data, and probably you make a good guess. Can happen, right? It happens more often than we think. Um, but then that is how it is. So don't make a big process out of it. Make it very simple. Make it part of your DNA. Have it in some of your meetings you have with the teams or your stakeholder alignment meetings. Have this 3 questions prepared. You always ask. Why are we doing it? Why do we now? What is the data? What is the assumption? What do we expect from it? Just like these simple questions you always bring in, and suddenly after time, people start thinking in that, hopefully thinking in these kind of categories, and it becomes part of DNA. So yeah, when it really comes to the point where you have no option to gather data, it's I don't know what to say. Probably do your best guesses, and act fast. Yeah, make the bet small as possible. And this is one of the core ideas of Scrum and Agile. Have small iterations, fast iteration, then collect feedback after it. Make the every decision as small as possible so the risk is not that high. Maybe that helps. And this is just let me say this again. This is probably very obvious, but you see a lot of which have this huge planning processes, and I'm talking about 2 quarters, a year, 3 years. You still see this in tech, and it may have some meaning in some context, like for example in banking, where you have a different approach for quality and security. Nevertheless, it must work for your context and make the bet small as possible, low risk as possible, fast and smart as possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, on to the next question, which says, how can we prevent our biases from
Yeah.
affecting our probability estimates?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing with biases. They're usually somewhere in the subconscious, right? And they just kick in without us knowing about it. So um, I think there are like three things you can do. First is self-reflection. Yeah. And there are many ways for self-reflection. Just some go outside and smoke. I don't do that. Some do like business journaling. Some do call their mom. I don't know. Like do reflection in some form. Understand what happened. Why did you behave in a certain way? Sometimes you find body markers, or you get angry, or like what you see very often is this overconfidence bias. And Martin, you do this for 20 years, or yes, I'm working in this product, I'm working in this team for 10 years, and now I know the domain in and out. So there's nothing I can learn, because I know I've seen it everything. I heard this kind of talk. So it's good to have like a buddy. And I think she also recommended this, have a buddy, a decision buddy, somebody who challenge your decision making. And again, this is some investment. It takes time, but sometimes you have somebody on your team which you're good with, or you have some on the peer level, and you just have this quick talk on the coffee machine and just say, hey, look, I was thinking da da da, and you say, oh, you're stupid, you're nuts, it's not gonna work. So then okay, probably there was a bias kicking in. And third example, do this with your team, do this with your peers, look into biases, common biases, discuss them, find examples from your work environment. And you don't have to do this every week or every day, but like, I don't know, once a year, just repeat it, know the biases. Because we make so many decisions, and we make a lot of bad decisions. That's how it is. But if you do too much bad decision, it adds up. And at some point in time, you brought yourself at the point where you can't move anymore, because everything is so set. And what Annie Duke says is, what differences good poker players and professional poker players is, the good poker player, he might have some good gut feeling, he might have a lot of luck, and if he have a certain hand, he says, okay, like this hand won me last tournament last week, so I'm the lucky guy, this will win me this tournament also. A professional poker player, he's very cold. He's just like, okay, these are what could happen, and the probability that I can win this round is 70%. And at this point in time, this is not enough for me. I'm out. So professional poker players, they quit. They exit the game when they don't see any chance. So that's probably also helpful when it comes to making a lot of decisions that probably add up to bring you in a bad state. Yeah.
And okay, next question we have is, dear Martin, could you please share a concrete case of a product that was developed with the help of probabilistic thinking, where an exit was required and why?
Mm. I can. Yeah, it's always with these cases you can talk too much, but I was in a situation where we wanted to launch a product in a different country. Um, and we already made a lot of assumptions and built a lot of stuff. Um, and then we found out, okay, in this specific country, like the data plans people have and the quality of the network is not good enough to have this kind of solution, to bring this kind of app to the market. Um, and the cost was very high because marketing campaigns were planned, like not only online marketing, like posters, radio, like we talking about like a go-to market, like a market launch, right? And we had to exit here with this product because we didn't believe that this product will have any impact in the market with the data quality in the market. So of course it was very hard to explain to the leadership and also to the shareholders, like everybody involved, other teams, even all my teams. Hey, I know you were sitting on this for months now, but we had not enough data. We didn't have enough market knowledge. We didn't have enough customer knowledge. We made the wrong decision, or we placed the wrong bet, and we have to postpone the market launch. And this was hurtful. It was hurtful, but I still believe that was the right decision.
Okay, so we have time for one last question. And it says, I work as an external consultant. Clients in this environment often prefer safe decisions. How to show them that wrong decision is a
Mhm.
part of the game?
Yeah, that's actually a very good and a tough question, because like all this rational, um, transparent decision making of people who we think are the best at this place, in this team, at this time. This is often a very nice scenario, nice world we often don't have. We don't have the safe environments, especially when you come in as a consultant. Like the ship is already sinking, and it's like, hey, 50% of the product team just walked out the company. Like these kind of situations, you don't have safe environments. Nevertheless, I think it's important, of course, to move quick. Often these teams and companies, they're stuck in some decision making paralysis because they don't dare to make these decisions. Um, I think the best advice, and it's always difficult with advices, but the best advice probably is to install these systems. Like first, decide gut feeling, decide maybe, or with low quality of data, decide the most pressuring stuff. So the team just keeps on going. And the second thing is, install these systems of decision making and start small. Like I said earlier, small, very simple. Make sure people just go through some steps, and bring this back to like a more cool down, rational way of working. Um, and of course, many companies don't have an idea of what a safe environment means and why it is so important for product management, why it is so important for all knowledge work, to have the safe environments in place. Um, this is nothing we can solve as product managers and probably not as consultants. But this is one of my beliefs of, and also experience of 20 years of product. Without some certainty of safe, some level of safe environments, you will probably not make it with your product on the long term. Yeah. Very sad ending. I'm
Okay.
so sorry.
Well, it happens sometimes.
Yes, it helps.
That was the last question. Thank you so much, Martin, for
Thank
sharing
you.
your knowledge with us today. And thank you all the audience who joined and shared their questions in the chat with us. Um, just to finish up, today's live stream. Remember that we are hiring. So if you want to join us, you can scan this QR code and then it will take us to our job board. Then we have our newsletter, which is a monthly it's a monthly issue where we share product knowledge. Last month we did it around International Women's Day, and we had very interesting interviews with both Victoria and Mirala, which are the leaders at Product People. So feel free to subscribe too. And remember that, of course, next week we're having the live stream again. And this time we're going to be with Anastasia, who is going to be talking about platform power up and from product thinking to platform success. So thank you everybody for joining today. Thank you, Martin, for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
You already did it last year, and you're here again. So we're hoping to see you in a few months too. And that's all for today. See you everybody next week.